The Chiefs still own the Chargers. It doesn't matter who plays. What's up, everybody? Ken Swanson here with Craig Stout, Maddie Lane, celebrating the 11th win for the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season, this time without some of the household names that you are used to without Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. The Chiefs pull off a win in Week 18. Some notable names did still play. We can talk about that later, but happy victory Sunday evening to you, Matthew Lane.
Well, thank you. I enjoy this victory Sunday evening at 7:30 p.m. Not night, but evening. This was it was nice. It was nice to sit down, have no real stakes on the line for the Chiefs, to sit back, enjoy a game of guys that you don't get to see play as much. And it was fun. It didn't really matter who won. It was a nice way to get a watch a Chiefs game this year after what has been a very stressful, very hectic year watching the Chiefs games most of the time. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I really love that Craig Stout's defense continued to play elite despite the fact, actually they played a lot of their starters, but despite the fact they didn't have all of their starters.
They didn't. Derek Nottie played a lot of snaps. Chris Jones, we're going to talk about that guy here in a little while. He played a few snaps, just a few, guys. And then, the cornerbacks played a little bit as well, but it was largely a bunch of backups and didn't really matter. Easton Stick running the ball and then kind of throwing some YOLO stuff was about the only thing that they had going. So it was really good to see. I had a really enjoyable time. There were no stakes to this game whatsoever. The defense still played well. So it was a good time at the old stadium this week.
The Chiefs have avoided having the same record to close out the regular season as the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is obviously a very positive thing. This is kind of obviously a weird game to be talking about. This is a little different than what we're used to kind of breaking down, because we're not going to spend too much time just going over all the ins and outs of a game that is essentially preseason week number 4. It was really fun, though, to see a lot of guys that don't typically get some opportunities to go out there and make some plays, put some tape on for themselves for the future, whether it be here in Kansas City or not. So let's just kind of get into it. I think one of the things we talked about was trying to see, Mecole Hardman as a receiver, just down the field a little bit, trying to see him get involved. He gets 11 targets. If you think that's an accident, I don't know what to tell you. They were very intentional about getting the ball to Mecole Hardman in this game. 6 catches, 77 yards. Definitely still some moments there that are very Chiefs wide receiver of him. I don't know, dropping a football, stepping out of bounds, missing on a route, or just giving up on a route. They kept coming back to me as I was talking. I wasn't trying to dunk on them. They just continued to come back to me. But some really positive moments and explosive play in the passing game, and something that we could see the Chiefs utilize here in the playoffs next week.
I mean, it was the full-on Mecole Hardman experience. He does a few things to get you excited, and I think in this case, it was more so that he was looking like a competent wide receiver, not even doing anything extremely special, but looking like a competent wide receiver, coming back to a Chiefs wide receiver, which hasn't had that. He adds some speed. He adds a dynamic element. He had a couple nice plays there, not in a row, but in a short period of time, to where everybody, I think, was starting to really feel the Mecole Hardman might come back and matter for this team. And then you just got a plethora of, this is Mecole Hardman again. If it's just the whole experience, completely stopping on an over route, just stopping that leads to an interception, stepping out of bounds because a cornerback decided to get a little physical with him, and he just couldn't handle it and steps out of bounds. The drop on the high screen pass, but then they drop on another perfectly thrown screen pass. It was the full Mecole experience. There was definitely some highs. And I think the Chiefs still need him to continue to do kind of what he did in this game going forward. He's the only guy they really have with speed. He's the only guy that really stretches the field vertically. But man, it is hard to rely on him when he is now in year 5, making the exact same mistakes that he made as a rookie in Kansas City, that had them let him go into free agency and go to another team before having to trade back for him. The same mistakes are still there. You hope they improve with more playing time. But there was some good, there was some bad. It was the Mecole Hardman experience.
I did really like that he attacked the ball at the catch point. Had 2 major catches early where, looked like it was going to be an interception or a guy was going to get his hands on the ball, and the concentration to see the ball in on those is something that, frankly, we haven't seen from the Chiefs wide receiver core this year. We just haven't. Even the one where he got physical on the boundary, steps out of bounds. He goes up and attacks the ball still. Like, he comes down with that catch, even though he stepped out of bounds, makes that mistake. It's nice to see a wide receiver go up and attack the ball and not just wait for it to come to him. So those were the positives that I saw from Mecole Hardman. I really liked, I believe it was on a third medium that they threw a quick smoke route to him and allowed him to get upfield real quick. It was nice to see a guy put his head down and go through guys. Rashee Rice does that, but not a lot of the other wide receivers on this team do. So being able to generate some of those yards with those short passes, with that, tiny, average depth of target was one of those things that was very positive. And then the most positive for Mecole Hardman, they hit him on a deep over.
Mm-hmm.
A big play for this team. And we have been begging this team to throw the ball downfield. Blaine Gabbert did again on another deep over. Mecole Hardman stopped running on it, but, that's par for the course for Mecole. Everybody remembers Patrick Mahomes telling him, just keep running. Keep running. But they're throwing it. They're showing it, and they're throwing it. And Mecole Hardman coming into this game, playing pretty well, again, should give some defensive coordinators a little extra to think about that they haven't had to think about towards the end of the year here.
Absolutely. Just maybe they can get him involved in that playoff offense down the field, show it this week against whoever, this team eventually plays in the wild card round. It might be something worth having, just to kind of introduce here and show. And I mean, we've talked about this team might need it. They might need a Mecole Hardman to be involved significantly, down the field for this team, because they really have had a hard time trying to find it. Okay, one of the funniest moments of this game, and I think one of the most contentious moments of this game, obviously, Chris Jones playing a lot of snaps, as Craig just mentioned, spending a lot of time on the field today. Finally, late in the third quarter, achieving an incentive that he was clearly playing for in this game, getting a full sack to get to 10.5 on the year, a $1.25 million sack for Chris Jones. The team loses their minds. It's like mom just made pizza rolls, like for the whole neighborhood. Like, everyone's just freaking out. It was great. Just a big celebration across the board. It was so tense watching that, I think, because everybody, like, a lot of people were just like, just get him off the field, just pay him his incentive. Finally comes down with the sack in the third quarter, and I don't think we saw him the rest of the game, if I remember correctly.
No. I mean, Chris Jones was obviously playing for one of, if not the biggest incentive on out there available this weekend. He was clearly trying to get it. Every single play, he was timing the snap. He was flying upfield through whatever gap was nearest to him. Like, he was playing for a sack from the get-go. And quite frankly, he made the Chargers passing game completely inept. Not that it would have been good with Easton Stick and whatever they had going on anyway, but he was wrecking their passing game. He played no attention to the run game because he was out there for one thing and one thing only, to get the $1.25 million, which I think is entirely fair, right? It just took a long time to get there. And that kind of stinks because he was dominant from the get-go. I mean, he was dominant from the very first series. He just couldn't quite get his hands on Easton Stick. He couldn't bring him down. I think he ended the game with an insane amount of pressures. I forget what the number was on his 31 pass rushes. He was just pressuring nonstop. What he ended up with 12 in a sack, 11, 12. That's just
outrageous.
It's just crazy. He was everywhere anytime the Chargers tried to drop back and pass. And so, like, it was frustrating how long it took, given there were some other injuries to other, positions on the field for the Chiefs. You were getting a little nervous that he was going to keep playing for some money that, he was trying to earn, that he may have lost himself earlier in the year, that he was trying to get some of it back by playing deep into this game. And you had that fear in the back of your mind that he might get hurt going for something that seems so unnecessary. If we could rewind back to the start of the season, I obviously don't want to say $1.25 million is unnecessary for anybody. That's not what I'm saying. It's just, he had to get this sack to get close to what he was going to get at the beginning of the year, had everything just played out like normal. So it was a big deal for him. It was a big deal for the team. Everybody was happy he got it. Glad he did, and no one got hurt, but it was stressful to watch.
Kid, drop yours, and then I'll go on my Chris Jones diatribe.
Chris Jones has made a lot of money in the NFL, but $1 million will still make him jump like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? I just love that so much.
Buddy, that's again, that's like one of us finding $10 on the ground. I'm still excited. Like, let's be clear here. I'm still very excited about that. No, Chris Jones, that is a 39% pressure rate. 39% on 31 pass dropbacks. That is insane. He tied the season-long pressure amount for any player in the NFL in a single game, and he came out immediately after that sack. Would have put up more pressures because Chris Jones was not playing the run today, and that was fine. This game did not matter at all. Like, this is the very epitome of an Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo just saying, you know what? We understand what's on the line for you here, buddy. You don't play the run today, that's fine. We're going to have Cam Jones light it up behind you. We're going to have other guys take care of business. You go get your money. And that speaks to what, we've been talking about Andy Reid as a player's coach, involving the other guys, rotating them in. That is Andy Reid as a player's coach right there, because I thought they were going to pull him at half. I thought they were going to give him a half, and then when they came back out, and they wanted to. So he straps up his helmet, he gets a series, comes back and goes, Coach, I need one more. I just need one more series. And sure enough, he was absolutely right. That's a testament to Andy Reid. I know that we talk all the time about, the Chiefs front office versus players, about, who values money and stuff like that. Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid wanted Chris Jones to make every dollar of the incentives that he got from the organization this year. That's just plain and simple. You can argue about whether or not it was worth his time to try and hold out for those or what. That's an off-season discussion for sure. But you look at the way that Andy Reid, the coaching staff, I know Andy was upset after, the celebration and all that. It's because he wanted guys on the field, because it was a field goal that was being attempted by the Chargers. But they were super excited for him. The whole team was super excited for him. We haven't seen this team.
Field goal blocks just hanging out.
I know, just hanging out over there. Yeah, absolutely. But we haven't seen a lot of fun from this team this year. We haven't seen them have a lot of fun. That moment right there was pure joy for everybody on the sideline, barring a couple coaches that wanted to make sure that the field goal team was out there. So I loved it. I loved every second of it. It was wonderful to sit there and watch them just erupt in pure joy for a player on this team getting one of his incentives.
You saw Steve Spagnuolo go over, give him a big hug. You saw Chris Jones go over to Andy and give him a big old hug and thank him for all that and all that stuff. And you make a good point, Craig. Like, there maybe hasn't been a ton of reasons for our excitement this season. It hasn't been a fun year. And you can kind of see it wearing at times on this team. But you saw some cuts to Patrick Mahomes. He was loose. He was, he was having a good time. He was smiling, and he was kind of,
he wasn't the one being sabotaged by wide receivers. He felt pretty good about himself. He looked like he actually slept the night before a game, knowing that there's no one to let him down.
He got to be on the other side of it. He just... What did Blaine ever do to you, Pat?
Blaine's coming over to the sideline. He's like, I'm right?
Brother. Well, it is kind of funny. We talk about McColl and doing some good things, and then you just remember 3 different just unique scenarios that if they happen next week, we're going to be apoplectic about. Obviously, so Chris Jones.
I'll take 6 for 77 from McColl next week with a couple of drops, though.
Put on 12 targets, though. It's a lot of targets.
I don't know about 12 targets.
That's for later. We don't have to go to it. It's just, the whole team seemed like that they were enjoying this game, whether it was the young guys on the field, whether it was veteran guys that weren't suited up. Just everybody seemed like they were having a good time with this game. And I think that was something that's going to be helpful for the Chiefs. And it was nice to have the Chris Jones moment of him getting that incentive, getting that money. Everyone gets to come together. Everyone gets to be happy for it. Whether they ended up winning this game or not doesn't matter. That's the moment that's going to matter to everybody going forward. It's a nice high note to head off into the playoffs under, saying, Chris Jones, our guy that's been here, we drafted him, he's been here forever, got this incentive that he was after. He was clearly into it. The whole team rallies behind him. You are now going into the playoffs on an extremely high note for what the rest of the season has been. So like that's the good news for it, right? You couldn't go into the playoffs any higher than they are right now.
Well, and it was a fun game to watch. It was fun to see Chris Jones get his incentives. I think obviously there's a lot of discourse about whether or not Chris Jones should be on the field at all. And there was plenty of discourse and some scares that occurred, kind of proving that point. We're going to talk about that right after this break. Good
Talk
break.
about it, Kent. Talk about it.
Okay, so obviously with the Chris Jones situation, a lot of people just on social media just like, get him off the field. Why is he on the field? Pay his incentives. Just get him off, just take care of you, whatever. Well, there were a couple moments that made you kind of point to that again, right? We saw a couple injuries today. Wanya Morris goes into concussion protocol.
Yeah.
Chiefs are then forced to play Jawan Taylor at left tackle for the first time. The great Jawan Taylor left tackle experiment has finally commenced. It happens in week 18 in a meaningless game, and 6 snaps in, he gets rolled up on. And we have a giant injury scare for the Chiefs' 2 starting tackles in the game. The Chiefs are rotating their 3 interior offensive linemen all game at different spots, which was kind of fun. You're just getting to see Creed line up everywhere. They should have given the ball once. But Trey Smith, who's been injured, Joe Tooney has to play left tackle for a little bit. Like the Chiefs are just kind of their injury, their offensive depth, their offensive line depth just challenged, in a meaningless football game. Kind of scary considering, we've seen this team in the playoffs without an offensive line and without, their starters just rolling into a game, and it's been pretty gross. That was kind of a stressful moment there.
Oh, for sure. I got to go back and watch because I know coming out, so Jawan Taylor, Wanya Morris gets concussed and leaves. Jawan Taylor goes to left tackle and quickly gets kind of rolled up on or twists down weird and leaves the game. Coming out of half or their first drive, he was back at left tackle, but then the second drive, Tooney was in there, and I only saw Tooney in there at left tackle. I wasn't watching specifically every drive, so I'm intrigued to go back and look and see if they were rotating in the second half or if there was a re-aggravation of the leg, or he just didn't feel right and they took him out and let Tooney go the whole time. But I mean, either way, that's not great. Even if it was just a mild injury, he had to come off the field for a little bit because he had to go over and not only play in this game at all, but he had to go and play out of position this game because the Chiefs they didn't have any other tackles active. They only had 1 reserve offensive tackle available for this game to play. That's wild. And it's bad luck that Morris gets hurt. It's even worse luck that Taylor then goes on and gets hurt. It wasn't like it was foreseeable, but it really would have been nice to maybe have another body on the offensive line that you could have put in there so that Taylor doesn't have to go play out of position, so that Joe Tooney, once Taylor gets hurt, isn't the guy that's being put out there to also play in a meaningless game. It would have been nice to have another body, elevated from the practice squad to eat up snaps in a game that didn't matter once Wanya Morris got hurt, because Morris is the one guy that needs the reps. He was the one starter that should be playing. There is zero, Taylor, Tooney had no business playing in this game if they didn't have to, and they just shouldn't have had to. It's this. Yeah, that was a very frustrating thing to watch as the game went on.
Well, and see, I think it's interesting. The focus is obviously going to be on the offensive tackle position, the fact that they didn't have another guy called up that they felt comfortable with. But I think what's really flying under the radar, Creed Humphrey played a ton of guard snaps today. A lot of guard snaps, which I get. I totally understand. You have Gretty out there playing center so that he can, he's obviously comfortable snapping to Blaine Gabbert. The exchange is one of those, you don't want to mess around with that. But I thought it was really interesting that even late in the game, Creed Humphrey's out there. He's out there playing guard. So they didn't even look at this and say, oh, okay, Caliendo is a guy that we can trust to play every single snap. He was rotating in and out. So they did a lot of really odd things with the offensive line that I don't think were just injury related. I think they were going to do some of these things, get looks at some of these guys in different positions and just kind of get a feel for it. It was really kind of curious to me to see them protect so many players and then put guys out there that maybe were a little banged up, maybe could have done with a little bit of rest. And then not just that, but play them, and then play them a lot. So I was just very interested to see how the offensive line shook out. And frankly, I mean, from a performance standpoint, the offensive tackles were not good. Like, they just weren't. Wanya Morris was really struggling with Khalil Mack, which, I mean, a lot of people have struggled with Khalil Mack, not just this year, but throughout his career. Lucas Niang was really struggling to get enough depth for a lot of reps as well. Then, you got Jawan Taylor playing left tackle, and it just looked uncomfortable for him. It really did not look like something that you wanted to happen very often. And then Joe Thuney, you saw the link show up a couple of times, the lack of it there. So you looked at this performance and you went, man, really wish the Chiefs had another offensive tackle. The more and more that we see this team utilize their offensive tackles, the more and more I am just fine with Donovan Smith starting the moment he gets fully healthy, because at this point, get the guy out there. I don't know that he can be a whole lot worse.
Well, we kind of had that conversation a little bit earlier this week. It's like, hey, do you try to get him some run this week to just kind of see how he looks so his first snaps aren't the playoffs? It may not even matter at this point because Wanya Morris is in concussion protocol, so they're going to need Donovan Smith to be active potentially, because if that can, that's a Monday conversation. That might be a Thursday conversation. We can get there, but things got thin real quick over there, and it's going to be fat. I mean, the Chiefs need Wanya Morris back at minimum. They need Donovan Smith back. They need Jawan Taylor to have made it out of there unscathed, or at least, not really inhibiting anything. And I'm sure we'll be getting Andy Reid updates relatively quick here, I'm sure, as the show goes on. Anything else on the offensive side of the ball? I know we just got done talking about the offensive line and the injuries, but is there anything else on offense you really care to talk about? I feel like we've kind of hit the high points.
I don't think
I
so.
will say this about Blaine Gabbert.
Yeah.
My man took a long time to get a side adjustment. Was throwing it about 1.5 feet, 2 feet over everybody's head and ripping it like hard throws. Didn't do his receivers any favors early on. Obviously steps up, has a really big drive there at the end of the game. But it was one of those, I think, throughout most of the game, everybody's looking at this and going, man, we were spoiled by Chad Henne. We just really were spoiled by extremely competent backup play. Not to say that Gabbert's not competent, but extremely confident in Chad Henne was really, really nice there. Kent?
Well, we do have an update from Andy Reid on injury, so we're going to break in as soon as we get those. So,
Maddie, do you have anything else on offense before we go to injuries?
No, I was just going to say, Blaine Gabbert was slinging the ball around everywhere. The ball was coming out high to everybody. And Justin Ross obviously isn't small, but it's a small wide receiver room too. So when you're throwing all high passes to the average height of 5'10" guys, okay, maybe there's a little bit of room for air there, right? Now Justin Ross did have to adjust on a ball that was thrown over his head and make a nice catch on, but everybody else is short. So Gabbert, I thought, came out throwing with too much heat, a little too fired up. I thought he settled in through a couple nice passes. We talked about some of the McColl stuff. He played fine as the game went on. I don't feel as good as I did with Henne, but he also looks like a competent NFL backup that if he has to go play, your entire team isn't going to fall apart, right? So I feel like you have that going for you.
Two pieces of breaking news before we get into the injuries. Sources have confirmed that we will be doing a live watch party at Holiday Distillery for the first round of the playoffs, the wild card round. I am very excited to be getting out there, hanging out with all of our friends, seeing all of you out there. So there will be details to follow coming up. Obviously, we are waiting to find out the day that the Chiefs, playing. So as you are listening to this, there's a good chance what day that the Chiefs are going to be playing with it. We are working on getting that announcement out. So I believe we are going to be giving some people that participated in the Sola KC raffle an opportunity first to get their tickets to this as a additional thank you for all that you guys have done to help support that. There will be more details to follow over the course of the next week, but plan on keeping an eye on that. All the social channels are going to be kind of giving you more details on the watch party that will be happening. We'll be limited capacity, but we are really excited about that. It's always a incredibly fun time being out there watching games out at Holiday Distillery. So just a quick reminder on that breaking news. So here's the injury report from Andy Reid. Left tackle Wande Morris banged his head and is in the concussion protocol. Justin Ross has a hamstring injury.
Man.
Yeah, I know. It's not going to help any narratives. Jalen Watson has a calf injury.
That one's low-key big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is. Really is. So that's your injury report. So, obviously sounds like Jawan Taylor made it out of there okay.
Jawan. So that's good.
That's the best news there. Charles Goldman is the tweet I saw, the wonderful Charles Goldman. So there's your injury report for that. Yeah, go.
I do have one thing before we transition to defense here. Andy did talk about Travis Kelce. And, Travis Kelce obviously didn't play today. Chiefs head coach, this is from Charles Goldman as well. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid said that tight end Travis Kelce chose not to play and that pursuing the 1,000-yard season would have been selfish. And he added that it was different from Chris Jones's because there was no financial incentive there, whereas Chris's obviously had a financial component to it. So there you go.
That's interesting. Any thoughts on that, Maddie?
I mean, it's his choice, right? If he doesn't care about it, then he doesn't care about it, and you don't do it. I don't. I said this on Twitter, and I don't need to go deep down the hole. But I find it a little interesting to be 16 yards short and somebody opting out of their choice to end a streak that would put him in rarefied air. He does this for an 8th straight year. That puts him with only 6 other receivers. People ever to do it 8 straight times. You do it one more year after that, you cut that in half to 3. It's rarefied air where he already is, but it starts getting more and more exclusive. To make that choice 16 yards short it's his choice. He doesn't care about it. I found it a little interesting to just say hey, I am okay with this streak ending at 7 and not pushing for the 8, the 9, the 10 if I keep playing for all those seasons.
Another update from head coach Andy Reid saying that Chris Jones' sack clearly meant a lot to him and his teammates. And quote, that's a couple of cheeseburgers right there that he made.
Of course.
Hey,
we are not allowed to say cheeseburger on this show.
Town topic. Come on down.
This is the post game. We can talk about cheeseburgers on the post game. We just can't talk about it on the lab.
98% of a fantastic idea from Maddie Lane for the entire
so many
season.
Town topic cheeseburgers coming in right now. So many town topics.
All right, let's talk about the Chiefs a little bit. We talked about Chris Jones.
A flea market burger right there.
A lot of the conversation about the Chiefs was getting eyes on some of these younger players. Any young players that stood out to you, Craig, that you were just really enjoyed watching today?
I mean, I'm not going to take Maddie's because I know who he wants to talk about here. I alluded to him already, so I won't there. Malik Herring, have a day, man. Had a fantastic game. It wasn't just the plays that he was making at the end of the game there, but those obviously mattered. He was really, really good all game long. And, I mean, it's hard to single out a single individual on this defensive line. They had a lot of really good performances on the defensive line. We'll get to some of the other guys in a little bit here, but Malik Herring was in the right spot, was really handling business well against, at times, Rashawn Slater, who's a really good offensive tackle, and he was able to make stuff happen over there, was able to stop the run, was able to keep Easton Stick in the pocket at times, was able to get his hands up, swatted a pass, ends up with a sack himself. So I was really impressed by Malik Herring. He's just a guy that's kind of hung around on this roster, been at the bottom of the roster, not always active on game day, but when he's out there, even if he doesn't play a ton of snaps, he's in the right spot and he's doing the right things. And those are the types of guys that Steve Spagnuolo and Joe Cullen love, and they love keeping him around. When you get the opportunity and you seize it the way that he did today, that's one of those that's oh, well, yeah, Malik's probably on this roster again next year just as a guy that you can count on to play some rotational snaps and occasionally make an impact.
I mean, it's taken him a while to get there, but like he plays very much like Mike Dana. I mean, like, right, like that's kind of his style of play on who he is. He does a little bit of everything. And like, yeah, Malik Herring is a guy that's always going to belong on a roster and give you reps when you have an injury or when you need it. And if he can keep making progress, maybe he gets into being actually part of a rotation. For a guy that I think really might actually get a break into a rotation soon, Cam Jones, linebacker, 44. I mean, first half of this game was the Cam Jones show. He ended up leading the team in tackles, both solo and total. He was flying all over the field. He was hitting. He looked, fine in coverage for the very basic set of soft zones that the Chiefs were playing. And like, he did everything that we have grown accustomed. I'm not saying he's as good. Okay. That would be very clear. It's good. He's doing everything that we are accustomed to Drew Tranquill or Nick Bolton doing when they are playing in the middle of the field. He's coming downhill aggressively versus the run. He's showcasing decent range side to side. He's not really getting, absolutely destroyed. He's not getting picked on. He's just making plays and doing so with a physical presence that you kind of always knew he was there. So like this, it was really impressive. I thought it was a very impressive showing by Cam Jones. It was interesting. He was in on the nickel. So they didn't put Leo Schnell, who was playing in Basin. They went with Cam Jones and Jack Cochran. It looked like Cam Jones was playing a little bit of the mic. I couldn't tell for sure. Yeah, I think he was playing the mic at least at times, if not the whole game. So like that's an interesting little nugget too. So you're now looking at this Chiefs going forward. They have 2 linebackers that are coming up to be free agents next year. I wonder if they saw enough from Cam Jones, who's been a special teamer all year, to think that they maybe don't need one or both or however it may play out, those linebackers coming back next year. Because, I mean, first reps, he's a young guy. You don't want to jump the shark here, but like he looked good. He made a splash all over the field.
And he did some good things. Like he did some good things at Indiana, did some good things at the Senior Bowl last year. Like he was an intriguing kid coming out. He was one of my favorite undrafted free agents that they wound up taking. And I think he was kind of a surprise player to some extent, not like a big surprise, but a surprise keep on the 53-man roster this season. It felt like from a numbers crunch perspective, they kept a few more more linebackers than they typically had, and Cam Jones was the benefactor of that. And obviously, we thought it was more of a special teams type thing, but also like we've got to see him on the field a little bit here, and he's made marked improvement. A couple other guys, it was fun to see, Nick Jones get on the field, fun to see BJ Thompson get up, run the arc a little bit. Like I think he's going to be an interesting study this offseason, in conversation this offseason, because definitive quickness and, burst, obviously it's going to be interesting to see how his frame holds out. The Felix Anudike-Uzomah conversation, I know a lot of people are going to want to ask questions about that. And so, like, first watch, I don't know. I know we probably all have just some initial thoughts, and maybe we can get a little bit more into it tomorrow. But I thought it was kind of a mixed bag for him. I think he did some good things. There was a couple plays. We made that really nice play down in the red zone as an unblocked defender. Pass rush was kind of up and down, if you ask me. Pretty, some inconsistencies, but also kind of flashed some of those things that you like to see. Some good hand tech and being able to turn a corner, but I thought it was kind of a mixed bag for me personally on that first watch. And I know a lot of people are really excited about that and want to have that conversation. So we had to at least say something before the show ends.
Sure. No, I really liked how quickly he read out the game. When they left him unblocked to try and read him and make plays off of him, he made the offense wrong twice. Like it just absolutely punished them for leaving him unblocked and trying to read him out. Like it absolutely destroyed 2 plays. So it's there. Like he's processing the game. He's seeing some of that. The snap timing has to be better. When you see him put together some of the snap timing, which it didn't happen frequently today, but he gave the offensive tackle trouble. And again, this was Rashawn Slater that he was going up against for a large portion of the game, not all game, but a large portion of the game. He got locked up a few times. That's going to happen against a really good offensive tackle and a guy that hadn't played a ton this year. But it was the fact that he was the last guy off the ball. With that burst, explosion, and athletic ability, if they can get that snap timing down, he's going to make plays just because he's going to run around dudes. Like he just is. He's flexible enough to. He's got the explosion. He's got the athletic ability to do it. He's just not able to do some of that yet. So it's one of those that I watched the game. I was happy with the way he was processing it, because that's one of those things that coming from, collegiate to NFL takes a little while sometimes to get used to some of that sort of stuff. That didn't seem to be the obstacle here. It seemed putting some of the things together, like the hand usage, the snap timing, the technique. Just have him strapped to George after this year and just say, hey, go train with Tamba, go do all of this. We've heard rumors that might be happening already. So maybe he's already taking those steps to rectify that sort of thing. I think the potential's still there. I'm not any less happy or less excited about the pick after today. I just need to see some of those things get put together a little bit more, which, hey, a full offseason working with some guys may help that click into place fully.
Yeah, I think you have to be impressed with when the Chargers decided to attack him by making him read stuff out, leaving him unblocked to make him wrong. He was generally correct. And the hustle coming from on the backside of a play down in the low red zone. He makes a play on the backside that Camp Jones blew up the front of, by the way. And so there was some stuff to be excited about. I am a little less, I think, excited because I just didn't see anything as a pass rusher to be overly impressed by, right? That was just my thing. Coming away from that, I don't have a rep to look at where I'm like, yes, there's what I'm looking for. Whereas we talked about BJ Thompson earlier. He got mentioned. He cross-chopped and cornered right around Rashawn Slater. That was only one play. Wasn't even a pressure because the ball was coming out. But you see the athleticism and you saw it actually play out on the field. You saw the explosion, the get off the fluid. You saw it all come together. I think I'm still kind of waiting for some of those flashes from FAU before I'm ready to fully buy in. As of right now, he just seems like a guy that's a long way away from being even a specialized pass rusher. And that's what he's going to have to be at the next level because he's not really stout versus the run either. So it's just, I still think we're a ways away. And I think this game just further showed that he got to play a lot of reps versus starting level and a backup right tackle later in the game. And there was not a lot of impact when he had to beat blocks, when he had to defeat them. So we're in the developmental process. No panic needed. I think you see he's picking up the game at when he was challenged, he picked up the game mentally. It's just we're waiting for all the flashes to kind of come together. So I like seeing BJ Thompson get out there because we haven't seen him at all this year. And he is the defensive lineman for me that really popped. I'm okay, I'm really excited to see what that looks like going into next year because we saw those physical traits and how they're going to play out in a game and how they're going to make a big impact.
Yeah, I think it was just good for both of those guys, but specifically FAU to get a ton of reps in this game too. That's just a really valuable opportunity for him, especially since those snaps have really diminished over the last, since Charles Omenihu returned. So it was good to see him kind of get involved, and I know there's a lot of hype around him. So yeah, all right, let's get into Toast Game before we get out of here. Toast Game, as always, presented by Ben Holiday, Bottled in Bond Bourbon. And again, we are going to be having a watch party out at Holiday Distillery. It's going to be an absolutely great time. We can't wait. It's always fun to be watching.
It's awesome.
We've watched we watched the playoff game out there last year. It was awesome. Mm-hmm. So make sure you stay attuned to that on all of the KC Sports Network social media. We're going to have a great time watching the first playoff game out in Weston, Missouri. And we're going to bring Tucker D. Franklin on here to do Toast Game with us as we do always. So, Tucker, hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I can't wait to see you next week.
I know. That'll be great. I wish I could see Craig and Maddie next week, too. Not just you, but...
Yeah, you're going to have to wait 2.5 weeks. We're all going to be together at the Shrine Bowl in Dallas. So.
Oh, gosh, that's coming right up, isn't it?
I know.
Forgot about that.
Yes, it is.
It is sneaking up on all of
buddy.
us.
Dallas ain't ready.
Toast Game time, though. Tucker, what do you got?
Well, look, I got to raise a glass. Usually, when I get on here and for the Toast Game segment, I usually raise a glass to good health. Still health in mind as we head into the week before the Chiefs playoff game. I got to raise a glass to Blaine Gabbert. We got to go watch, as Blaine Gabbert affectionately calls himself, Daddy go in there and sling it. We got to watch that happen. Mizzou got to show off the wheels a little bit as well. Taylor Lewan told a story about Blaine Gabbert coming in and calling himself Daddy.
Oh, is that why you called him Daddy on Twitter?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it so much better.
Yeah, no, Blaine Gabbert refers to himself. He'll come into games and he'll say, watch Daddy sling it, then immediately throw a pick six. So love Blaine Gabbert. Mizzou made, Baldwin, Missouri native, raising a glass to Blaine Gabbert, getting in there, getting a win, leading a 51-yard touchdown drive. Shout out Blaine. Cheers.
Maddie?
we talked about a lot of the guys that I would have probably given a toast game to. So let's go with Shamari Connor. We highlighted him the week leading up to this game. He's a guy that was going to be out there playing a lot of reps. He did that. He was flying around, making plays. I can't wait to kind of go back and watch and just see, like, if he was assignment sound or just, coming up and making flashy plays. But he looked like he had a fun game. He was kind of taking over that enforcer role that they didn't have without Justin Reed, where he was flying around hitting guys. A little bit of a scare there in the game where he had to leave for a couple plays because he was hitting too hard. But he was able to come back in, didn't make Andy Reid's injury report. So it's nice to see Connor continue to get reps, to look good, and to kind of find what I think is going to be his role, which is that of a dynamic kind of downhill guy. So that was nice to see. So shout out Shamari Connor.
Yeah, I was gonna cheat and take the whole defense, who did not play like they were a bunch of backups today. They were hitting. I don't think the Chargers were ready for the intensity that the Chiefs' second-string secondary was going to bring to the table. I mean, like, they were flying around out there. But I'm going to go with Charles Omenihu. Comes up with a massive play at the end of an 18-play drive that results in a 97-yard scoop and score from Mike Edwards. But Charles Omenihu just keeps playing well, keeps building on previous performances, and keeps making impact plays. They pulled him pretty early in this game, and I think that tells you how they feel about him. They got what they needed out of him, and then trotted the young guys out there. I'm really excited to see what Omenihu is going to bring to the defense in the playoffs, but he's going in the right way right now. Toast to him.
I want to toast game to Rashee Rice for having only 6 less yards than Quentin Johnston, the first-round pick of the Los Angeles Chargers, did. Look, I know that we had a lot of discourse about the receiver rooms this year, and we had it before the draft and all that good stuff. But it is kind of refreshing to see Rashee Rice be the second-round pick of the Kansas City Chiefs and have an unbelievably productive season, and getting the context of watching Quentin Johnston have 1 catch, 6 yards, is just kind of refreshing to see. So I know I'm throwing a little shade. I don't care. The Chargers stink. We own you. We own the AFC West, even in a down year. Chiefs win. That is going to do it for the KCSN postgame show. Thank you all so much for listening, watching, supporting all of us. Again, keep an eye out on all of the happenings at KCSN. We've got the distillery party that's going to be coming up for the first round of the playoffs. We cannot wait to get out there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Thank you all again so much. We appreciate you. We'll catch you later.